Morning, everyone. I guess everyone is still trying to wake up. I think after the morning session from Dr. Rigler, we all heard about hybrid IT. So this session is primarily, I have two very smart young men, and I know I'm calling them smart because both of them don't have hair on their head. So I'm trying to get there. They're already smart. So I have the great pleasure of having Kenny Tucker and Brad with me, and they're going to be talking about two key things. One is, what do we see as the risk and reward of the hybrid IT? And secondly, what is Fujitsu doing in that space to make sure that we have a proper solution for you? So with that intent, Kenny?
Yeah, so there's the two pretty bald heads.
We're not related, by the way.
No. So one of the things that, and Dr. Rieger's speech, keynote this morning really kind of set this up, I think, perfectly from the standpoint of really putting the real high-level foundation of what's going on in the market. And I, from this slide here, what we talk about is this shadow has emerged, and you hear in the market the shadow IT. And shadow IT being the business users going around traditional IT departments, traditional IT organizations, and to consume these quote-unquote cloud services that are out there in the market. And so from that standpoint, I think defining cloud is one of the things that an organization has to take a look at and discuss amongst themselves, and IT organizations need to understand and discuss what is cloud. For today's kind of discussion, I'm talking everything outside of a traditional IT's ring fence data center services or end user services that they provide their corporation. So cloud being infrastructure as a service that's out there in the market, cloud being platform as a service components that are out there on the market, software as a service components that are out there on the market. And some of it is serious stuff, serious business stuff, like I think Salesforce.com from a software as a service is a pretty mainstream product today, but everybody sees that as lots of people use that as their CRM solution today. But then there's also things that are kind of benign, but we use it in Fujitsu, is stuff like SurveyMonkey. Leveraging those kind of services that are out there in the cloud to do specific things for the business, but you don't have to go get IT's involvement to do these things. And so we've spent, as an IT profession, and I've got multiple decades here, but we've spent as an IT organization, an IT profession, building ITIL processes and ITIL procedures and just a fence is the best word, a fence around our IT organizations and our IT infrastructure and applications. So one, that we don't screw up, and two, that we can go to the business and say, this stuff is secure, I can put my fingers on it, I can back it up, if we have a disaster, I can restore, I can keep our business up and running, because all of our business data is now tied into these huge legacy system of record systems, and we basically have built all the process and procedure to protect them. So, but what now? We've got these services outside of our organization, and the businesses want to use them, and so we have to come up with an idea and a operations framework that we can manage both sides of the IT world. You'll see in Fujitsu we call it robust IT, fast IT. In Gartner they talk about it as bimodal IT. So I think from my standpoint and from Fujitsu's standpoint, we're past the point of no return. This is going to happen. We're going to go down this road. And Fujitsu's not the only one talking about it. Gartner's got the reality of the new hybrid IT. There's many other of the analysts out there talking about how we're going to have to come to grips with managing inside and outside of our traditional IT organizations. And so the reason the business is going down this road is really around these three things. It's agile. You can go out to the world, go out to the market, buy one of these software as a service, buy one of these platforms for development, go hire your little consulting guy. You've got up and running some new, even internal business model, something off the grid within a matter of days, weeks, or months, instead of the process time that it usually takes from a traditional IT organization to think about it, plan it, put a business return on it, go out, buy kit, get it all installed, get it all tested, get it ready to support, Well, by the time we've done just the planning in our traditional IT mode, we may be up and running, have failed, decided it wasn't even worth messing with, and close it down. Or it may be that it has legs and it's going to run, and now we step back into the traditional IT organization because we've got to put this into production. The other component is cost. Very easy to get up and running without a bunch of upfront cost. Turn it on, start using it tomorrow or today, and start working on it tomorrow. And then the other piece of it, the business looks at it, is from an innovation standpoint. The business folks see this as this is our mode, this is our method to innovate in the business. So, if there's everything to gain and nothing to lose, oops, I thought that built. What's not to like? What's not to like about this new cloud organization, this new hybrid IT stuff? Well, the biggest component of it is the management of the risks. So with those, as I said a little earlier, some of those mainstream companies, not that big a risk anymore, but at one time probably was. Some of the benign stuff that is kind of like the SurveyMonkey or using some of those small tools that are out there in the world today, probably not that big a risk. But there are components out there where you can go out and buy some of these new software as a service, some of these development platforms, and your marketing group might be exposing, tying back into your legacy SAP system or Oracle system, your customer records, all those kind of components that, is that secure? Do we have that there? And then the last, on the other part of this, I think that most people are concerned around, especially in regulated industries, is the governance and compliance. Do all these services that we're buying out there in the world, do they fit all of our governance, compliance regulations? How can we audit it? How can we confirm that everything meets all the standards? We don't want to wake up one morning and have the guys with the windbreakers on knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, you had a breach," and no, we didn't have a breach in here. No, you exposed all this out here, and you've had a breach. So those are some of the things I think, really from a risk standpoint, it's not that it's not doable, that you can't take a look at it, but you really have to think about all the components of it. And really, from a standpoint of an IT operations organization, we have to start thinking about how do we take the structure that we built over the last couple decades of towers and centers of excellence around technology components into this converged service offering that's out there in the world, and how do we manage across both of those and still maintain some sanity? So my quote I like is it's a Mario Andretti quote, and it applies to his racing. He says, if you feel like everything's in control, you're not going fast enough to win. So in the business world, I think most of those guys are thinking that today. With the disruptions that are coming into their business, the business side of the house is saying, you know what, I feel like we have everything in control, but we're probably not going fast enough to win. The IT guys are thinking, I want to stay in control. I don't want to, feel uneasy about this. But if we don't make this step, I think the disruptors will come and the business guys will be right. We're not going fast enough to win. So with that, Brad's going to go in a little deeper. I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks, Kenny. Cheers. So let's do a really quick survey. I'll know what the answer is probably to this, right? So who's using some sort of cloud today? So put your hand up. So is there anybody not using some form of cloud? Oh, it's the one person in the room. So I'd love to know why not. So next question. For those that are using cloud, what are you using it for? I would assume, because the normal point of entry is the low-hanging fruit. That could either be dev tests kind of systems maybe, or it could be a Salesforce or a ServiceNow, some sort of SaaS system generally, because you get a better price point and maybe the speed to be able to react. So is anybody not using it for one of those two purposes? So the question, are you running any production mission critical applications from a cloud? Didn't think so. So for those that are using some form of cloud SaaS or dev test, have you got as far yet as integrating your cloud system with a back-end system? Anybody has? Yes? Okay, that's good. So, right. there's their first problem. So you can consume cloud, and most people will have multiple different clouds. So if I was to Diane, so give me an idea. How many cloud providers are you using, roughly? Probably 20. Okay, so most people say about 20. And I consider you our private cloud provider. Great, excellent, good. Most people say about 20. That's about the average, is what most CEOs use. Typically, if you was to assess what you're really using, that will probably be in the 90 to 100 different cloud services. You don't know it, hence the shadow IT problem of people using some form of cloud. So the first problem is, the ones you do know about, how do you manage all those providers in a single consistent way for a single sort of pane of glass? How do you understand who's got the best cost point? Are you getting the value you need? The ones you don't know about is how do you bring that into control or manage or not? And actually, part of the value is they've done that for a reason, so how do you exploit that? And that requires some form of top-down, you're working with good partners to understand how you would go about that, to bring that under control. And to do with the risks, if you don't control that data, it's typically you guys in the room, the CIOs, the EOs, CTOs, directors of IT, that ultimately still carry the risk of where your data resides. If it was to be breached, if it was to be exploited, if the Data Protection Act or other different compliance problems hit, ultimately people can go to jail. So, and this two worlds of how you manage both and bring that governance to control that is still a real problem. The second part of the problem is how you integrate your back-end systems, your legacy, your traditional, your current mission-critical apps with the cloud to give you new value. So people who consume cloud, they do that for cost. So that will give them 80% of, or it might give you a better cost point, but you kind of have to give something up because the cloud is around standardization, around bringing down, giving you just enough, typically. The next element, once you get there, is how you integrate to create new value. How do you get to the 80, from the 80 to the 90 to 100% of what you really need? How do you create new value from your systems? And you have to integrate those together. And that introduces another problem. All of the value you get from just using native cloud goes away, well, a little, when you integrate it with something else. So if you think about Office 365, most people typically will use Office 365 or Google Apps today. Anybody not using Google Apps or Office 365? We've got a traditional end-user productivity suite. Anybody? No, didn't think so. Good, right. So that example, if you use just for Office 365, great, fantastic product, right? So what happens when you introduce and integrate that product with your back-end system or trying to deliver an outcome at a business level? So you introduce the need for some form of service wrap, some process, some test. So an example, Diane, sorry, because we talked about this yesterday, I think, but the example here is a major retailer, a global retail organisation. So they use Office 365, but they integrate that and use that across many remote stores, but they also use that as part of the data sort of storage system for some of their tools, EPOS systems, some of the reporting analytics. So when you integrate Office 365 at a business level to derive new value, the IT department might not know, but unless you can test that end-to-end process, there was an example of that major retailer. If we was to have released a security patch in Office 365 about 4 months ago, it would have ground that integration to a halt, which would have caused the business to stop trading. That's a problem. So how do you overcome that? So that's some of the context, right? So my final point, if you like, around why this is really important, why Fujitsu is doing what it's doing, comes from cloud is inevitable. For you to get this digital transformation play, for you to innovate, truly innovate, and to do that at pace without the overhead of capital expenditure, 5 years of depreciation on your books, you cannot use traditional mechanisms of IT delivery. You have to use a cloud. So if you don't embrace cloud now and start to digitalise, you will not have a business in probably 5 years, if not shorter. Ultimately, cloud gives you that ability to innovate, the pace, to change, to try things, to fail. But that also comes back to then understanding how you change your organisation to react at the same pace, the processes, the people, again, the stuff that Joseph would have talked about this morning. So Fujitsu effectively have developed something called MetaArc. I'm going to give you just a really quick whistle-stop tour of MetaArc. This wasn't meant to be about MetaArc, it's about hybrid IT. Hybrid IT is the definition of how you manage these two worlds together. MetaArc provides some capabilities to do every tier of that underpinning infrastructure, but also the services and process of how you manage hybrid IT. So MetaArc is the culmination of currently about 18 months of development, and in total, from where we've been to where we'll end up over a midterm plan period, $2 billion of investment in cloud and digital solutions. Starting from the bottom, it basically brings together our best-of-breed networking capability. So we have a global WAN ourselves, we have partner WANs, we have the ability to integrate and link to Equinix, which gives you access to Office 365, Azure, Amazon, etc. Seamlessly with a quality of service you'd expect. It brings together a cloud service. So Fujitsu's cloud service K5 will launch globally. It already exists in Japan. The first region outside of Japan will launch in July in the UK to serve EMEA. There is an aggressive roadmap of about another 8 different deployments, each deployment being dual data centers in each region, because that gives you synchronous replication, by the way, to give you mission critical app deployment capability by the end of our FY16. So it will be in the US about Q4 FY16, so which is February, March time probably. But this is our true mechanism of globally standardising, giving you the capabilities that are far beyond infrastructure, but a really robust service around infrastructure as well. What makes that different? So we'll come on to in a second, but really quickly, that's been designed for true enterprise use cases to serve not just this new cloud world, but also this robust IT world of traditional IT, the support model of the support end-to-end support of your commercial off-the-shelf software, or your difficult to license workloads like Oracle and SAP. So that's the platform play. It also comes with 4 nines availability and service credits charged from the second you have a problem, which is different to anybody else in the public cloud market today. Amazon, you have to wait 30 minutes, Azure 5 minutes, a variety of different models, but you can't guarantee you're going to get a good level of service, so we fix that. If you move up the stack, private cloud. So not only is that our public cloud, our virtual private cloud capability, giving you, logically separated platforms, exactly the same architecture is deployable as a private cloud. What does that mean? That means you can deploy for your difficult mission critical apps on-premise in your data center or else, a dedicated platform, which means you get complete control and consistency, and you know where your data exists. You can go and see it, you can penetration test it, you can vulnerability test it. It's yours, but still delivered in exactly the same way as our public cloud. Same software, same hardware, same architecture, same commercial model. So you get true OpEx, so no upfront cost. What it means is you can develop, you can innovate in the public cloud, you can develop with open source technologies, gives you the ability to remove that interoperability challenge. So where you develop your open technology, so it means you can develop once, you can even deploy it onto IBM's or Amazon's Cloud Foundry instance, whatever it be, but you develop at low risk. It means you can remove or minimize the vendor lock-in challenge today. Once you develop and innovate, you can bring that back into the data center, redeploy your application if you want, within the constraints of a regulatory compliant environment, for example, or a government secure environment. And you can run them in parallel. But the risk and cost of testing your application is removed significantly. So that's the platform play. MetaArc's far more than that, and it brings the rest of Fujitsu's kind of wizardry and technology, kind of IPR, algorithms, ultimately to bring to bear for you guys to consume. So we have mobility plays. We're using in our mobility suite for a company called Nanto Bank in Japan, that technology to do as an API gateway to deliver mobile content. About 70% reduction in the amount of time it's taken them previously to develop their mobile system engagement. We're using big data. I'll come on to an example in a minute around how we've sort of done that for one of the biggest local, biggest central government customers in the UK, using the same sort of technology stack. IoT, there is a company called Optex, which has actually got presence in the US, global utilities company. They're using our current K5 platform and our IoT platform to deliver from Japan water quality testing. So they've deployed sensors into lakes, into their pipes, into their entire supply chain for water, so they can firstly report, they can test, but they can then drive intelligently and automatically, proactively and engineer to improve the water at any point, ultimately delivering their water to a customer in a far better way than they've ever done before at a lower cost. And finally, the artificial intelligence stuff. We touch in a minute on a customer example, but this is how we use our algorithms and our clever stuff, such as use cases of deep learning to identify fraud detection, maybe, or various different use cases. But again, the platform, MetaArc, is how we bring that to market. It's how you guys will consume it and be able to leverage the stuff that you sort of heard about this morning from the labs. So that's the technology play. Hopefully that sounds interesting. So if it doesn't, there's still a really important part to play, and that's how we bring this multi-cloud integration and management play to bear. Within the stack at the top here is some of our technologies, such as Run My Process, Globe Ranger, Fujitsu's Cloud Service Management product, but it's also the people, the processes, the knowledge and capability of how we do that. Everything from a business consulting kind of business transformation play to give you that process and how to organise, how do you deliver those services, through the migration of how you migrate systems to the cloud, or from another cloud to our cloud, or from our cloud to somebody else's cloud, and then how to integrate, but then deliver that service at the right pace for both worlds, which is really important, right? So robust IT comes with, as Kenny said, ITIL processes beyond ITIL processes. So for you to manage your environment, that orchestration piece of how to manage both paces of change, when you're talking about systems of engagement that change a day, every hour, every minute, and new content's published, not the same as managing an ITIL robust IT process where your mainframe service must stay up. They are two different ways of management. So Fujitsu's got great experience already of how we do that and transformed and balanced that two worlds together from a service perspective, and ultimately give the same user contact point for every part of your multi-cloud and multi-cloud management spectrum. So that's what we call the MetaArc kind of umbrella, the MetaArc platform. It's technology plus the know-how to deliver that technology. Make sense? Any questions? It's a fairly small audience, but I'll take one or two if you want, or we move on at the end. Okay, we'll keep going. Right, now I've already talked to some of these already. K5 and hybrid IT from a day one perspective. So the typical use cases we see and where we bring value is a complete portfolio. The end-to-end service. We manage everything from the network to your end user experience at every point in the stack if you want. That's unique. Nobody else does that. We're our own network service provider, our own ISP, although we use partners as well if we need to. There is no other company in the world that can offer the same breadth of experience. We talked about multiple form factors, private, public cloud, but also partner cloud, delivering the same consistent experience across everything. Deployed globally, we talked about. Choice, open source. So we give you, if you don't want our cloud, I'm not precious, so I just want you to get the best experience possible, right? So for some services, that means you'll probably use Amazon, you'll probably use Azure, you'll probably use your own cloud. No problem. We'll manage it in exactly the same way. Hopefully you'll use our cloud because it's been designed with the right levels of performance, reliability, security for most of your use cases. We actually designed the platform for ourselves. We'll come on to that as well. Managing the complexity, talked about that already, so cost. Fujitsu's Cloud Service Management product gives you complete transparency over what's deployed in your estate. One of the most kind of useful features I find though, is it also gives you the ability to find and regain control of some of your cloud services that have already been deployed. So there is something called the cost control element. You can plug in your Amazon contract, your Azure contract. It will visualize and report on what you're using today. Anything that's provisioned from our platform, it will show you who's deployed it and governed it. The interesting bit is it also shows you what else is not governed. And you can go and sort of look at your Amazon estate and go, well, that service and that application, that piece of storage, I'm going to reassign that to my business over here, so they start paying for what they're actually using, and you get visibility of it. So quite powerful, right? So, and then finally, exploiting existing investments. This is a really exciting area. So this is where some of the kind of next level of value you'll get. So what we talked about today is at the kind of IT infrastructure management, cost control, the operational efficiency angle. Exploiting your existing investments for new value is also an inherent part of, and a really important part of where we need to get to. And we have inherent capabilities technically and from a service and people perspective to help you do that. Great examples of where we've done that is if we've got capability to modernise applications. In fact, we did NATO's mainframes and modified those. I probably shouldn't say that, I should cut the video to Java. There's other examples of customers, I better not say anymore, but where we've done similar. But we also, there's a central government customer, inherent lots of mainframe applications, systems. That has zero balance sheet value. The business case to redevelop that and take that data and integrate that and exploit that in the digital world is massive. The risk is huge. The cost is huge. What we're doing is introducing APIs to integrate that in a single point of control with very little effort of application development, so you can then exploit that into a digital process. So similar sort of examples at a more technical level than Joseph gave this morning, but inherent in the platform. Make sense? Cool. Right, let me give you a couple of examples. So that's MetaArc. That's where we're going. That's what's coming. Let me give you some examples of kind of where that's been developed and what we've already delivered for some customers to bring that to life around this hybrid IT management perspective. So Royal Bank of Scotland Group. So Citizens Bank is a part of Royal Bank of Scotland Group. So Fujitsu deliver for RBS over 100,000 seats of workplace technology and user experience. So delivered ultimately from a private cloud platform. RBS is obviously a financial service industry. They have regulatory compliance challenges. They need to know where the data is. But they also want their users across their group to have exactly the same experience from a user look and feel on their workplace, if they access their systems on their phones or their iPads, but also from if they have a problem, they've got one number to call and they'll know exactly what's going on. So we do that for RBS. Any one of those 100,000 seats, anybody in the world can phone wherever they are and get the same experience knowing the data is secure in the data center. Part of the interesting part of that is actually where we've worked, Joseph again talked about this morning, the co-innovation, the co-creation part of that. The bank had interesting challenges around, they didn't just need operational expenditure. Given they're a bank, they can borrow cheaper than anybody else, right? They've got plenty of capital, but they still wanted the flexibility and the agility to better manage the demand so they're not overpaying. So we constructed a model where they have capital expenditure for some elements, and then the operational expenditure we were quite innovative to work out, and we offered lots of different models to say, how do you consume? Do you want to be charged per access, per desktop, per hour, per month, per day, whatever it be, to construct the right commercial model to fit within the constraints of their balance sheet. The second example here, we'll jump to the other end before we do HMRC. Lindorff. Lindorff is a company that's headquartered out of Norway, Sweden, Finland, one of the Nordic area. So they're, again, a global organisation. So now they've been on the journey with Fujitsu for a while. We started delivering workplace, started to take on their private cloud infrastructures, deliver their workplace from a private cloud and some of their other core business systems. As most of you will also have done, they went to a little digital marketing agency to create their web front ends, their systems of engagement, their mobile applications. There's no integration between the technical, or very limited, but they did it on Amazon. So because Lindorff was an outsourced environment, they have no retained or very limited retained IT organisation. They don't have the expertise. They also don't know how to manage unpredictable costs per month. The numbers go up and down, like a yo-yo, every month. The CFO cannot predict what his spend is going to be. Now they're in a period of stability, what they want to do, or what they wanted to do, is to regain some element of control. They're just enough. But they also wanted to have a single source of billing, a single service manager that they can phone up when they have a problem to say, help. So we took on the Amazon contract, novated that, took that on. We provide the customer the same experience across both worlds, traditional, public cloud, systems of engagement, mobile application, deliver that seamlessly from the same service delivery manager, same governance, same reporting, where appropriate for that platform, same billing. HMRC is, for those that don't know, the UK's equivalent to the Inland Revenue Service, so IRS. They collect, and this will be nothing in the grand scheme of America, right, but £500 billion, so about, what, $750 billion every year of tax from my pocket. No, I wish, right, but it's like Viren's pocket. No, I'm the only Brit in the audience, quick. So they collect an awful lot of money. They also do that for the Queen, for every sports star, David Beckham, for the lights. So that data needs to be retained secured. We've worked with HMRC, it's one of our biggest customers outside of Japan actually, for a while, and we've kind of reduced their cost, improved their efficiency, virtualised their estate, up to about 2 years ago. The government introduced something called their digital agenda, and a cloud-first initiative, because what they wanted to do is improve the engagement at a people level with how people integrate or use the government services. So how do they see what their tax bill is? So this kind of digital initiative required a step change. And basically the first one we delivered for HMRC was a private cloud with fully automation, full self-service, operational efficiency, operational expenditure, no upfront cost, charged exactly per use. That IaaS and PLAS platform unlocked their application development and innovation capability and the agility we talked about. Over the first 12 months, what took them about 10 years to develop in the size of their estate, about 3,000 servers, they now have more running on that platform of new digital services than any other one of their platforms. 1 year. What went from months of change control process for a developer to innovate, to be competitive, took minutes. But that's a fairly consistent story. You could do it on Amazon, right? The difference being you can do that with the security level you want, compliance you want, service delivery you want with the same person to talk to, but a complete step change in how that development unlocks the value in the organisation for a person. The second example of HMRC, which I get quite excited about, is then what we did next. So not only did we unlock the digital capabilities of HMRC, over the last 12 months, the customers then consumed our data analytics platform. Again, delivered uber scale, massive. It scales to multiple petabytes. As a private cloud, no upfront costs, true commercial model for cloud, so they pay per gigabyte of data ingested into that platform, that's it. So what they did was take sources from Oracle, from SAP, all their internal systems, from the cloud, merge that together, structured and unstructured data, to be able to unlock a level of visualization and reporting that they could never do before. Last year, the government collected an additional, in the region of £500 million of extra cash by being able to look at different people, fraud detection, who's looks out of kilter using some of those algorithms we talked about that they just couldn't see before. That's really powerful, and the same sort of technology is built into the MetaUp proposition from an analytics perspective. So, final slide from me, I think. So we're doing this to ourselves. I mentioned it earlier. So this platform has been designed for you to consume, to ease the integration, unlock the value in your legacy IT systems. We're using it ourselves to drive down our cost, which we're reinvesting to create better and better solutions. But we're the only provider in the world that is betting their entire IT estate on open source technology. As a result, we know we have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, open stack public clouds in the world already. So, because we've hit problems in the code that we've had to patch and fix and resolve to make it truly enterprise class and scalable, reliable. So fixed, no problem, done. We're well on the trajectory. In fact, the number I've heard recently is there's 16,000 servers within Fujitsu Limited. There's nearly 40,000 servers across the Fujitsu group that will all end up on our platform, and that is well underway. Some of which will be exposed via our API management tools so you can consume extra services such as our artificial intelligence platforms that are more difficult to consume today. So, in summary, I would suggest, whilst data and risk in your organisation is massive, more so than ever before because of the complexity, not knowing who's bought what in the cloud, not knowing what data sits where, and the risk of people being locked up, fined, challenged legally by not knowing, if you get it right, there's an awful lot of value. Extra growth, operational efficiency, reduced cost, ultimately regaining visibility and empowering your user community to deliver what they want using the tools and techniques that they want to use today. And Fujitsu can help you do that, as hopefully I've kind of talked about and given you examples of what we've done already, and there's many more. To leave you with, just to give you a little bit more credibility, we are working with another global company on the largest Microsoft Azure enterprise IT migration in the world today. We deliver for a single customer 250,000 seats of Office 365. In total, I'm not sure exactly what the latest number is, about 1.5 million seats of Office 365 around the world. We deliver private clouds up to 50,000 servers for a single customer. We have the experience to help you on your journey, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So, okay? If you want to understand more, we've got some various different booths that talk about some of the components there. There's materials on our website that talk a little bit more around MetaArch, K5, some of the use cases I've talked about already. There's also some hybrid IT management books and something called the Hybrid Hive. There's a social media site which I sort of, again, would love you to get involved in, sort of subscribe, kind of follow. And there's some good articles generally released on a daily or weekly basis from ourselves, from our partners, from some of our customers to talk about hybrid IT and managing and how you manage it and the challenges of it. So. Okay, so with that done, let's open up for questions. So, thank you.